Excellent. You ready?
Ready.
Up for it?
Yep.
Okay. Adam Gibson, this is your regenerative journey. Well, you're going to tell me in a minute. Mate, welcome to the regenerative journey.
Thanks, Charlie. Great to be here finally with you.
Oh, no, I've been talking about it for some time. And we're sitting amongst... Oh, hang on. What my first question, straight up.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us where we are and I guess why is it special to you? Why were you sort of guided me to this spot to do this interview?
Right, we're in Binnaburra, which is just outside of Bangalore, near Byron Bay, in the hinterland. And we're sitting under a magnificent fig tree, which is a white fig. And it's a very unusual one around here. I think it's indigenous to the area, but it's a very old tree, beautiful spreading. Yeah, it looks like a fig tree, big spreading branches. But it also drops its leaves in winter, and it's deciduous. So
That's unusual, isn't it?
Very, yeah. But this tree is also the heart of this property. It's right bang centre in the middle of everything. So this little spot here, we've got 4 dwellings on this place. Don't mention the council, but you know.
But
we've got
unless they're on their own regenerative journey, they're not going to be listening to this. I'll just spin this around so that our viewers can see the magnificence of that tree. Look at that. It is a cracking tree. And we hold workshops here, don't we?
Yeah, so this is where we run biodynamic workshops.
Beautiful.
And this is really the gathering place in the property. So it's a beautiful place just to, we spend so much time here under the tree, and it's sort of in between all the houses and all the dwellings and right in the centre of it all. So it's a lovely spot any time of year.
And why Binnaburra? Why this block? What does it mean when you step out in the morning or go, or sort of arrive home from work, or what sort of sense of place does it sort of give you?
Yeah, look, I left with my family, left Sydney when I was about 8 years old. Lived in the city, Bondi, kind of back before Bondi was, what it is now. And went to Queensland, and my dad said, "We'll move to Queensland." No, you don't want to go, but we're going to go buy a bit of small farm, live in the bush, going to get a horse, live that life. And I said, right, I'm in. And I was lucky enough to grow up like that. I had this beautiful experience growing up, just in the bush out towards Ipswich, out of Brisbane, western suburbs. Nothing flash, there's 1 bus a week kind of thing into town. It was a very, very quiet little place, but running around the bush and growing food and just being connected to, jumping on a horse when we needed to, that kind of thing. It was just a great way to grow up as a kid. And I was always certain that, even though I was a city dweller for many years as an adult, as a single man, but after I got married and decided we're going to have kids, I knew I had to come back to the bush. And this part of the world really appealed to me. Long before it got too trendy, it was just beautiful in itself. It's just a beautiful emerald part of the world, which is not far from the beach, and has some great red soil, good culture, and this is what I wanted for my children to grow up in.
When you moved from Sydney, was there was it because your father said, had he been a bushie and he went, "I've got to go back"? Was he having his own little bit of a return to Eden?
No, my man was a fitter and turner from the north of England, so he's not a bushie, he's the opposite. But he had a job transfer, and it was just part of what we always resonated with, the thought of going to the bush and being in a horse. I was always a cowboy as a kid, so I think that was the connection. I always wanted to be a cowboy.
For those who, unless we see it, actually we probably will see it, there's a couple of nags walking around the yard here, isn't there? The garden.
Yeah, so I finally achieved my dream by having a couple of horses on the place.
They're not like sort of stuck in a stable, they're just like roaming, eating whatever they want.
They're free range.
Oh, totally. Don't be eating those ones though. So, and do you think it's kind of a crazy question, but if you hadn't gone to that farm, what role did you, being on a farm at that age, 8 to what? So you moved when you were 8 and you left the farm when what? You were?
When I was 17, 18. And moved,
yeah, okay, so some pretty formative years.
Oh, right.
What role did that, being a farm boy, being a cowboy, what role, where did it, because you didn't go farming straight after that, did you?
No, I was in the city for a long time. But it was just an inherent connection with nature, an appreciation, I would call it, more than even connection. I wouldn't use that language back then. But I just loved it. I just loved the bush. I loved the feeling of being out in nature and just appreciating it. And running down the creek, catching yabbies, jumping on a horse bareback, and my first business, Charlie, was growing strawberries and selling them down to the local fruit shop when I was eight and a half year old.
Nice.
That was my first foray into business.
Mm-hmm.
My second foray into business was trying to find a job at local chicken farms in the area. And the kids at 12 years old go and get the job pulling the dead chooks out of the battery hen cages, all that kind of thing.
And your father suggested you do those things, or you just went, "Oh, I got get a bit of coin"?
No, I needed some money. So I thought I'd go find some jobs.
Did you know what you're going to spend your money on?
Yeah, I was going to
Cigarettes.
No, I was in the Scouts, and there was a Scout jamboree coming up, and I wanted to get to that. So the entrepreneur in me got born at that point, because what happened was I went looking for a job to get to this Scout jamboree. I remember I needed $400. I was 11 years old, and that's all I needed was $400 back then, because that was like...
It's a lot of money back then.
It was what, 40 odd years ago.
I mean, you're 75. I mean, you'd have been in pounds and
back in the old days.
and pennies back then.
But I couldn't get a job. I was too young.
Yeah.
And after about the fifth chicken shed owner said, "Mate, come back when you're 16 or 14 or whatever it was back then." Child labour was a bit more permissible, but not at 11. And I said, "Well, okay, I'll come back for the job then. But in the meantime, what are you doing with that big pile of chicken shit you got in the yard?" And he said, "Oh, nothing. It sits there and rots." I said, "Well, can I have it?" He said, "Mate, you can have as much as you want." So I put my Scout hat on, me and a mate, and we knocked on every door in the new little subdivision that had just opened up in this little backwards area of western Brisbane, western suburbs. And all the new gardens were getting formed out the front. We sold bags of chicken poo and said, we're with the Scouts, we're raising money to get to the jamboree.
Oh, okay, so that bit was
it was
legit.
kind of truthful. It was representative of the truth. And we made a lot of money.
You were very resourceful putting on your Scout uniform.
And then there was a salesman in right from the beginning. But it was interesting. We raised we raised more than enough to get to a jamboree.
I was going to say, you reckon you would have made
more
than $400.
And we realised that there was money in.
Did you have to bag it up too?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So there was all of it was. It wasn't as though you go, "Hey, this is a voucher for a bag of chicken shit." You go and bag it down the road.
We went to bag it, and we kind of appropriated some bags from the local council depot that didn't need them as much as we did, and we bagged it up, and then we got the old men, our fathers, to drive around the trailer on a Saturday to deliver it. So that was a contribution. That was great.
Did you pay them?
No.
That was a coercion right there. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So there was a pretty solid grounding in country life, appreciation, nature, and I guess that's interesting that spawned entrepreneurialism as well, because there was something there was resources that could be repurposed.
Yeah, and to be clear, it wasn't a farm. It was a bush block. It was a bush, So I never saw entrepreneurialism and farming being necessarily connected early on in my life. I do now, obviously, but more just I think that there was a reverence for it that I thought, this is without this part of life, what's the point? You've got to have connection to this. There's this knowledge in that.
And that was some innate little thing that was clearly an attraction. Because I know a lot of kids who, grew up in farms or bush block type situations, no connection. They're there. It's like, oh bloody, I've got to go feed the chickens, or I've got to shovel chicken shit. There's not I guess it's a whole different perspective. Or appreciation.
We had a bunch of mates who lived down 5k down the road who were in this little housing subdivision, suburban spatch, and so we all went to school together. But we're in the bush. I say me and a few other mates on similar properties, and they were in these little suburban blocks. They were pretty boring. There wasn't much going on back then. There was no iPads. The TV was 3 channels, whatever it was. There wasn't much happening in the region. There was no culture really happening. It's all a new estate. We had the best time living rurally. We were on motorbikes, we were on horses, and we were around the creek, and we had always something to do. The kids in the suburbs were bored out of their brain, and they used to get quite jealous. So that's how it seemed to me. It was pretty straightforward. You're in the bush, you got something to do.
It was there.
It was there for you.
Yeah. So teenage years in the bush block. Any sort of significant moments in your adolescence, juvenile years that were you could put down to a bit of a turning point, or a real challenge that you met or learnt something from?
Look, nothing specific other than I think going to school, I got a scholarship to one of these GPS type schools out of Ipswich, which I appreciated deeply at the time because my old man's a fitter and turner, so it was a big deal to get to a good school. And he encouraged me to do that. He was very supportive. I'm grateful for it. But it also taught me I didn't really fit into the system as such. And I always remember going and looking through these careers books, which were pretty boring back in our day. They were like, you want to be an accountant, a plumber, or they're very generic. And I thought, I don't want to do anything here. There's nothing here that appeals to me. And nowhere did it say you can go and be a business owner. There was nowhere that said go be an entrepreneur, make your own money. So that understanding of the lack of space in the system for free thinking and disruptive thought, and the ability to be truly free in your decision making, just really stuck with me. And I always looked for alternatives from that point forward, and found ways through things differently and asked different questions. And that's been the skills that stayed with me.
Well, what might have been the catalyst or the impetus to think that way? As opposed to going, oh yeah, here's the book, I'm going to be a dentist, and then do I get the marks, yes or no? What's plan B? And think more vocationally or professionally or whatever, as opposed to a more general view of, well, I want to be able to have the skills to apply to anything I do. Was there any sort of, was the old man of that way,
Look, I've just had, I can't answer exactly other than saying I just have this deep part of me that knows we've got, there's a low tolerance for boredom. I really get bored easy. I like life to be exciting and interesting.
I'll try and keep this interview upbeat, mate.
Yeah.
Is that my water, by the way?
That's your water.
Okay.
And, but secondly...
that was a warning for me. It's not very subtle.
Yeah, low tolerance for boredom, but also just a recognition that, we're on a limited time frame here on this earth. And I've always felt that. I've always been aware of, there's the clock's kind of ticking, and make the most of it. So to me, the impetus is really to be expanding, growing, learning.
Hungry
to grow and learn and just discover. And I think what's always intrigued me is this idea of the potential of human beings, the potential of ideas, the potential of businesses. And when you mash all those things together, what something can become rather than what it is. That's what is I think it's just innate. I see that. There's a part of me that sees that sometimes above seeing the harsh reality of it. Because I can see the potential of things, and see the potential of people, and in businesses. So it doesn't mean I always have the skills to bring it out necessarily. It's not saying I've got a crystal ball, but I tune into that more than I tune into what's gone before.
Well, it's a great starting point to have that viewpoint or that perspective, isn't it? Because because if we know people, and I'm sure at times I certainly have not had that viewpoint, and you're looking for the negatives. You're looking, you got your black hat on 80% of the time.
Yeah, and in certain areas of life, I guess I'd probably do the same. But certainly with business and people and where we go, that's I've been working now as a business coach for 20 odd years, and that's the guts of it. That's the foundation of it. Is I can see into the potential of it, and we work or speak to that potential and explore on that level, on that edge of where the potential is, rather than buy into what your fears and limitations are. What if we could remove those fears and limitations and see what was there? What if you removed, this is how we've always done something, and then see what was there and available from that point forward?
I want to get back to that. Thank you for that little prompt, Adam. Teenager, not seeing the world as others may have been at that time in their lives, in terms of from a career point of view. Giving the career advisor the bird. What happened after school?
I was convinced by my mum to go to university for a short while before I got asked to leave.
Was that the end of our week?
It had a very short lifespan.
What did your mother convince you should do at uni?
Anything would have been the answer.
Oh, really?
But with her best intentions.
Go and grow up.
But I was lucky and also bold insofar as one of my great passions that was passed on to me as a kid through my dad was bodybuilding and powerlifting and weight training. Sure. So, and you might not look at me now, you might not realise this.
Oh mate, I can see the foundational work. You don't lose that. I've seen your trophies. I haven't seen your photos yet. I'm a bit scared about that.
I'll bring them out if you like. Yeah.
Well, we do this part when we do the promo of each episode. We do a bit of. We ask our guests to sort of furnish us with a few befores and afters, and previous lifetimes. Yeah. So we'll see. You'll see a bit of muscle bound. Macho Adam there somewhere.
It'll prove that, the old saying that the older I get, the better I was.
That's right. Hey, that pretty much goes for all of us.
But I was lucky. I got out of school and I was training, passionate into bodybuilding and the gym. And my dad and I would train together at the one hardcore gym that was in Brisbane at the time, which was an hour and a half away from school, but used to go there every afternoon to be in this culture and train. It was, and I was built like a arrowroot biscuit, so I wasn't exactly well suited for it.
That's very strong, arrowroot biscuits.
Well, a paddle pop stick. I was skinny. I was more of a distance runner.
Or as my mother would say, you look like a cat who's been eating lizards or something.
Yeah. But as it happened, this gym, we're at uni, and this gym was about to go broke, and we had a chance to buy it for not a lot of money, and rebuild it. So I convinced my old man. I said, "Let's buy it together. You sign off on the loan, and we'll build this thing up. We'll work it together." So he, at early 40s, I guess, decided to ditch his career and his corporate job and throw his lot in with this crazy idea and this crazy notion. And we went in from a standing start from scratch and bought this heavy-duty old bodybuilding gym, which was like a dream come true for me.
Yeah.
So I was very, very, and that's at the same time I was at uni. I quickly left the uni because they said, "Look, you got to focus on uni." I said, "Why would I bother? It's something I love to do." But I was lucky insofar as it taught me this, Charlie, was that I was doing something in my life every day. I didn't make a lot of money initially. Not for years. We didn't make any money. We made wages, or I got paid literally in milk, right? Because we had milk in the fridge and I needed to eat, and I was training, and that's and then I'd go and work as a bouncer on the weekends to make a living.
Not skim milk.
It was called shape milk. It was horrible stuff, but it was
shape. That was the thin. That was the watery stuff.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. But I was very, very fortunate. I was age 19 when that happened, and I got to learn that after I did some travel and stuff after school, but my first go at really working into a business, and we did some long hours in there. It was mostly fun, but it was long hours and a bit of work to it. I used to open at 6 in the morning, I'd close at 8 at night, so it was a long 14-hour day. But every single moment I was there, I loved it. I loved every part of it. Dad and I used to do it together, so it was a great bond with my dad. And everything we talked about, we trained, we helped people train, everything was about the gym. And so work and passion for me have been synonymous ever since. They do not be separated. And like I said, I don't care. I didn't care, but back then I really genuinely didn't care how much money I earned. It didn't matter to me. I just loved the fact this is what I get to do every day. So that was baseline for me, and it's been a big theme ever since.
That's a really important point. Is there, you've mentioned you're a business coach, so I imagine that that notion of loving what you're doing is that a cornerstone of what you teach or what you advise or how you sort of counsel business owners?
I think it's very kind of popular now to use that as, it's sort of a meme on Facebook or whatever you want to call it, but it's more than that. For me, it's a foundation, because let's be honest, the more you build a business that you actually don't like, or doesn't feed you and fill your soul up with something, or make you feel proud, or create a legacy, or whatever fills you, but if what you're doing every day inherently is not life affirming or purpose affirming, or whatever you want to, whatever new age term you want to use, I don't inherently think it's either the business won't be successful or your life won't be, or both. So to me, it's just the fundamental. If you're not doing something which is fully in line with what you care about, go choose something else. Your life's short. Choose something that really matters to you, and that may require going against, the narrative and the people in your life. It might require going against, losing money for a while, or going backwards financially. But hey, you want to go backwards financially, or in terms of your life wellness and life happiness and things. So that's a big one, I think, and that's when you get people in business who line up what they care about with their daily activities and their vision and their purpose, and they go, I get up every morning because it's in line with what I care about. They don't need much rustling up in the morning. They get up and go at it. You know, there's an inherent motivation.
I guess the word congruence, kind of jumps to mind there.
It's congruence with, when it all lines up, and it creates that state of, well, you don't need motivation if you're already excited about doing what you're going to do, even if it's a tough part of that particular task. You don't need to be pumped up from outside. It comes from within. And then, the highest form of that is when you hit that flow state where, your level of competency matches. You're just stretched on your competency level, but you're also in that sort of space where you're good at it and you lose sense of time. I'm not expressing that well, but when you're really feeling in the groove and in the flow, that's what we look for. Those little moments in life are just worth everything.
Just on that flow state, is there more to the flow state than timing? Things fall into place, and a positive kind of outlook. Is there more? Because we've talked about we share a common view on the world in a lot of the things you can't see. There's a lot of things out there you can't see, and science can't count or identify. Is there anything to add to that flow state, defining flow state? And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is there sort of more to it than like the technical, all this stuff's happening at the same time and it's good?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of great books around flow and how to create that. So there is this, what I was searching for before, there's this state of competence. Your level of competency is kind of matched with the difficulty of the task. So there's this, anyway, but that's still not expressing it well. But I think, to answer your question, one of the best books and the understandings I have of the flow state is a guy called Gay Hendricks, who wrote The Big Leap. It's been around for a long time. The Big Leap talks about levels of your ability to be incompetent in a different area, in a particular areas of life. There's areas of life we know we're competent at, so we can kind of do them, but better off getting someone else to do it, arguably. Then there's a level of things we've got to do in our lives that are around excellence. We're excellent at them. And we probably get paid to do that right now. You can do it, but it doesn't necessarily light you up. But everyone wants you to keep doing it because it serves the purpose. But as a subset of those things we need to do, or as part of our business or our life, is a subset of things where our genius lies. And the genius is where our flow state happens and where our gifts are uniquely suited to, our unique gifts really get to be expressed in the world. And that's where you lose sense of time and you're doing something you love and you say, well, I can do this all day, and it always feels good. And Gay Hendricks talks about the big leap being going out of the state of excellence and creating our life to be in that state of genius all the time, where we can, not, or most of the time at least. Because what will happen is we get that upper limit of, wow, I'm in my state of genius, I'm starting to really enjoy myself and it's feeling good, and then we go and screw it up and flick ourselves back into the stuff we've sort of paid for and excellent at again. So there's this, and he talks about upper limits. So we've got, to come back to your question, we've got levels of comfort of how good life can get. So we have these every little flick switches of self-sabotage to bring us back into the level of pain we're kind of used to. And I think, examining our belief statements around that, examining what our subconscious mind maybe absorbed about life and our beliefs before the age of 7 or so. They're the keys to really getting the blocks out of the flow. If you think of a drain pipe, it's like, well, it flows better if all the blockages are gone. And sometimes removing those things and re-examining our beliefs can allow for expansion and flow to happen. So it's more about getting stuff out of the road more than putting anything in, is my belief.
It's a bit like, it's a bit of a parallel with regenerative agriculture, and it's often there's things you stop doing is where, when rubber hits the road, you might stop spraying chemical, you might stop focusing on things that are out of your control. A lot of those, which is a really nice thing to know, isn't it? It's like, I can actually improve things by doing less.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think even the thinking around that, if we think about this sort of, if you let go of the notion that this is how I've always done something or this is the only way to do it, and let go of that, in the absence of it, in the vacuum that's created by that, we're left with curiosity and questioning. Well, in the absence of that, what can we do different? And that's what I find really exciting about Regen Ag. It's like, because it invites this critical thought to come in and intuition to come in, and it creates new possibilities as a result. So that's an exciting aspect of it for me.
I want to get back to Regen Ag and take you back to you mentioned journeys before. Had you got to your state of journeyousness at the gym? Was that where your journeys was unveiled, or did it happen later on?
Mate,
are you still looking for it?
I would love to. Let me know when you find it for me.
No, I think you've found it. Well, my sense is you've found it. You know,
it's a funny thing. It's, I'm just parlaying someone else's work with that, just to take no credit whatsoever for that whole genius thing. That's Gay Hendricks, right? But that we often don't realise our own genius. It takes others to point it out for us, and that's pretty much universal, I think. But I can report that my genius didn't lie in as a bodybuilder. I was very dedicated, but I wasn't physically.
Were you excellent?
I was good at it. Yeah, I was well, Charlie, I'm sure you're aware of this, but I was a junior 1992 Mr. Australia in the natural category.
Awesome.
No doubt you've heard of me. In that
I did. I've got pictures. I had pictures of you on my fridge back in 1992.
I figured you might, yeah. But yes, I achieved.
That's quite an achievement.
It was. Look, for me, it was everything.
Especially the natural category, because that says a lot about you, knowing who you are. But also that's I imagine that's a bit more of a slog than
it's a lot more of a slog.
The unnatural way.
Look, my approach in that space, as I said, I wasn't blessed with great genetics. Certainly not whinging about it, but yeah, I wasn't. Not for bodybuilding. A lot of it's genetic. It really is, and what you're gifted with. But without the chemical aids that go with it, I just thought, well, and to be fair, I was competing in natural competition, so everyone else is tested and so on. But what it meant for me was, well, the things I can control is I can control what I eat, control how hard I train, I can control my mind about how I visualise what happens. So all the controllable things, which meant I lived like a friggin' monk for years, right, literally, I did. And I never cheated once on stuff. I never went, I should just be eating this, but I'll have a chocolate bar instead, or I don't cheat on the diet. I never missed workouts. So I did all those things. So I knew that
committed.
If I was going to get on stage and came dead last, it would be fine because I did everything I possibly could. If I get on stage and win, it's because I did everything I possibly could.
You're mitigating against disappointment, I guess, in yourself.
And that was just a personal journey. And the other part of that, another part of it was in powerlifting, which I did okay in as well, just more again as a natural. And for me, being a powerlifter was a big leap because I wasn't again suited to it. But I managed to push some decent weights around in the end. And what I realised too, and again some early lessons in life on this one, is that once you get under a bar with, say, my biggest squat ever was 260 kilos. That's a squat with a bar on your back, dropping your ass to the ground, standing back up again, all right?
Yeah,
Now, 260 kilos, to put in reference, is the size of a large, heavy Harley Davidson sort of, soft tail sort of thing. It's a lot of weight.
And so that's like 8, 16, 24.
600 pounds.
That's 380 kilo. It's more than that. 380 kilo people. I mean, I don't know what I am now, but 80 kilos is not a small person.
It's a lot of weight, mate. It is crushing. Like the Olympic bar bends like a banana, and it's six 20 kilo plates either end of it. Right, so you look at it, and it's intimidating to look at. Now, getting under that and doing a squat for a little skinny bloke from Ipswich was kind of a big deal for me. But what I recognised pretty early on, I was lucky enough to train with a mate of mine, Luke, who was a lot stronger than me, also a psychologist. And he used to play mind games with me. And he'd say, go outside and don't even look at the bar. Don't even pay it any respect. Just go outside, psych yourself up, walk in, don't look at it, and walk in and start squatting. And invariably, you'd play around with the weights and put more on than I anticipated. And so I recognise that the body is far more capable than we recognise in it, and more we can understand ourselves to be capable. Our brains will be the limitation more than the body will in a lot of cases.
Yeah, true.
So there's a great example there for me of what I could achieve mentally. And it's an interesting one here, mate. This has been my reflection. I started developing myself physically and in the gym, building a muscle and so on. And then I kind of moved towards developing myself psychologically or mentally. And, you know, positive thinking and all that kind of visualization.
While you were still, is this in relation to your bodybuilding?
Yeah, it's part of it.
Sort of adding on another layer. Skill set or layer, yeah.
Then after I had some fairly major business breakdowns and a bit of a you know, window licking moment, if you like, where I really hit the wall later down the track, I woke up to my emotional development and realised there was another side of me that I had been really ignoring all my life. This is in my late 30s. And that opened another realm of possibility and realised there was a whole emotional world there. And then finally, in the last number of years, I've been more tuned into a spiritual level of development. So sort of gone, I don't know if that makes sense, but you know, physical, mental, emotional, and then spiritual. So that's started in the gym and it's ended up here and sitting under a fig tree talking to you.
It's a good point to make, because I guess when you think about it and talk to people, is there's the mind, body, spirit. That is like a generalised kind of the three pronged levels of there's the physical and then there's the mental and then there's the spiritual. There's the but the emotional, I guess in a way, is kind of pulls it together, doesn't it? Because it's the more expressive. How do I express my spirituality, or how do I express my mental state, or how do I express to people my physical feeling? So maybe that's sort of the emotional is as important, and it's kind of has a different role. It's sort of the outward expression. Is that a fair thing?
I think so. Look, for me personally, I can speak to that. I guess is that I was I went to school and probably similar to you, Charlie. I wasn't brought up in an environment where it was encouraged to be emotional about anything. It was like, be positive, be strong, big boys don't cry, all that kind of thing. So I tried to cling on to that for a long time until I just couldn't cling on any longer. So it almost needed me to break before I could open up to another part of myself and give myself permission to have some more feelings.
So you were clinging on to that for how many years?
Oh, till late 30s, mid 30s.
And was there a catalyst for that?
Yeah, to let go of it, you mean?
Yeah, or just to go, oh shit, I'm on it.
Yeah, well, I just became, I recognised as part of me, realised I could go and achieve whatever I wanted in my life, like powerlifting, 260 kilos, bodybuilding, business, whatever. I felt very capable, but I wasn't getting any happier. I was getting more unhappy. And I realised that I was really becoming a miserable bastard and I didn't want to do any more of it, but I didn't know what else to do. So I hit a point where it literally became a sort of physical exhaustion, mental exhaustion, emotional exhaustion, and that played out in business and eventually became financial exhaustion. So I hit a wall financially. Basically everything, it burned up, exploded, so on, imploded, whatever you want to call it. And I walked away, and with nothing left to lose, including a very strong sense of my identity at the time, which I thought was all about being this big muscly guy who owns the gym and blah blah blah, drives a sports car, typical full of bullshit sort of thing. That was stripped from me. Suddenly I'm nobody. Who am I now? So the whole this stripping away, my identity was taken from me. I didn't give it up easily, mate. I have to say. It wasn't like, here you go, I'll just try something new. It needed, what I've heard you talk about, tension events. It needed me to be completely flawed and they're ready to be rebuilt in some way. And at that point, I was lucky enough to run into some people who were involved in coaching, and I was then vulnerable enough to be open to it, go, okay, someone's going to have to help me here because I've got nothing else. Can't rely on the old, let's try something new.
Was it a slow burn to that point, or was there did someone turn around to you one day and say, was there someone just cut you down? It was an internal thing or an external thing?
Look, people tried to point it out to me many times prior, but I was too big-headed to listen. It took for me to have a personal implosion before I could, and financial implosion.
The financial or physical or mental.
Yeah. You broke, lost my life business. I had 17 years in a business that was just everything I knew. So I went in at 19, I was 36, and I got out, whatever that maths are on that. But it was, and I'm so grateful for it. So grateful that, that part of me, that ignorant young man got to be humbled so I could actually start growing, because I wasn't learning, I wasn't growing. And so opening up to that and being curious about what else is out there, and not hanging on to what I thought I was ultimately a very, very big gift. And it very quickly allowed me, interestingly, to develop much deeper, beautiful relationships. I met my wife straight after, literally about the same time. So she turned up, within months of that happening. Actually almost at the same time. Within 12 months of that, within 18 months, I'd made more money than I had in the last 17 years in a year. Not that I was even trying that hard to do it, but it just started flowing. And I think coming back to this idea of flow, it was almost because I wasn't tuning into how I honestly felt, and I was trying to override all the time, and I wasn't prepared. I just didn't have that sort of sense of myself in terms of what I was as an emotional bloke, which I have discovered I am a genuinely very sensitive, emotional person. I was trying to be everything but that, and that was a block. That was like sticking a big rock in a downpipe and going, see if you can get the water around that, and it just didn't. So nothing flowed from there.
Excuse me. And what did Adam Gibson start doing, like from a friend or an observer? What were the changes that people would have seen in you? Or I guess there are internal changes. Was it that you woke up in the morning and thought something differently? Was it the food? Was it your habits? And then what would people have said? Oh Jesus!
I think a lot of them thought I'd joined a cult.
Did you wear? Were you in that? Is that where the orange robe thing started?
Yeah, I think I did. I went on this relentless kind of personal development, went off the deep end, and it was probably a bit over the top at the time, but I was really ready for it, and went and did a lot of these pretty intense personal development workshops, and have done ever since.
Any that were highlights that you might in some way recommend to others?
Recommend to others.
Well, okay. Sure, what were the ones that you did then? Not with
probably there was a very good friend of mine, Real Bergen, who's I went to school with early on, and she said to me for years, go and do this workshop called Landmark, and I went, it's about. I know you've done this one too. So anyway, eventually after my sort of at this point I was so humbled, I thought, okay, I'll give in, I'm going. And I just remember, without going into the detail of it, it really tapped me into. It was almost, for me, it was like, I remember the feeling, genuinely, it was like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, looking over a void, going, if I let go of who I think I am, and step into, if I follow what they're asking me to do, and I was sort of on the precipice of it, so if I let go of this, and it's going to be like falling into that void, not knowing where the hell I'm going to land. And like, literally, it's like, I'm going to give up everything I know about myself as an individual.
Scary.
And at some point it just sort of happened, I flew in, and it just, so there was I know it sounds a bit vague and a bit weird, but that was a big one. And giving up that sense of identity and that rigid sense of who I thought I was just allowed for unfolding an exponential possibility as a result. So I'm forever grateful for that moment. And for real, if you're out there listening, this is, I'm still grateful for that push.
So she'd done the course?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Which is often how the Landmark works, isn't it? It's a lot of word of mouth, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is kind of a good way to do it, because it's it's sort of like it's referred, and it's sort of obviously if someone feels that someone else might need it, it's that's kind of, and that happened to me. I had 3 people say that in a period of 1 month you should go and do it. Went, there's something here going on here.
Yeah. It's a tough one because it's we're at an age where that kind of stuff was seen as a bit, it's a bit sissy, a bit pussy trying to, you know what I mean? It wasn't that, to me it was like, I'm not going to go and
Self? What do you mean?
There listen to this crap, Yeah,
that's right.
So there was a lot of me against it, because that, I still wanted to see myself as this big tough bloke who can run on the football field and lift weights and blah, blah, blah.
But the interesting thing is it takes a lot of courage to get to that point and actually step into that room and to spend the 3 or 4 days getting literally shredded. Well, you shred yourself because it's it's your reaction, it's your perspectives changing, and it's your willingness to change. We'll get to that point of just getting, I've got a choice. I can walk out of here, pretend this didn't happen, or I can actually go run with it and get to that edge.
Yeah. And I'm with you. It was courage, and I think what I recognise, and it's very obvious to me now, but and I see this in clients a lot too, is that courage is having the guts to look at that stuff and be vulnerable. If you actually don't feel courageous inside, we need a mask of going, I'm too tough to talk about this crap. So I put my hand up, I was 100% like that. So yeah, the courage was actually going, you know what, I don't need a mask, I don't need a shield up, I don't need a suit of armour around me, I can just be here and you can take your shot at me, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to stand no matter what you throw at me. I know who I am. I know myself enough to know you can't. There's a courage in just knowing yourself and in your entirety.
Any other sort of memorable prompts that you were given? You know, nudges, other trips to the edge in that time.
Look, I'll give you a lot of them, but I was a student of this stuff for a while. But I've got to give credit to a guy called Paul Blackburn from Beyond Success at the time, who through invited me into his coaching world. And I learnt a lot about how he operated as a coach and the coaching business. This was early on in the game before, everyone's a business coach nowadays, and good on them too. But it was before business coaching was really a thing. It wasn't really a well-used term at all or understood. So I learned a lot from Paul, both personally and professionally. And then really, ever since, Charlie, I've worked out, I reckon I've probably spent a couple $100,000 on different personal development stuff over the years,
But, was that a good investment?
Absolutely. It's only because of that. And I think, go back to that landmark thing, what I recognised was I was in business, and what I recognised is this I think would relate to a lot of farmers that I know. I was doing the same thing every year, getting the same result, and trying to get a different result, trying the same thing but with more effort to get a different result, which is, definition of stupidity and all that. And I looked around and saw a lot of people who I actually respected and saw the business journeys they were on. They were kicking goals and moving ahead, and I was kind of spinning my wheels harder and harder and harder. And I thought, what's going on with these people that I'm not doing? And I realised it was this other aspect, this landmark, personal development was what they were doing different. So that's what really convinced me. I thought, hang on, the people who are really doing stuff in the world that I admire are prepared to go and look at these things and do this. Made sense from that point forward.
And you were ready at that point.
Yeah, and also I think I did need some. I needed some other blokes I looked up to show me it was okay. If that makes sense. I didn't want to be sitting around being the only bloke in a room full of, middle-aged ladies at the time. That was just not what I was up for. So as a young man, I was like, make sure there's some other guys here, and that helped. Rightly or wrongly, it did help.
And so there were internal changes, epiphanies, coming to Jesus, as it were. What behaviours changed? When what would people say about Adam Gibson? What was he doing back then?
I think I stopped talking and started listening to people. Started connecting genuinely with people, and that was a beautiful experience. Actually, I could actually. I'm still a good talker, don't get me wrong, but as you know, but I did actually start listening to people and deeply hearing them and connecting and listening. It just filled me up to listen to people so deeply and just hold. Everyone says it around Byron, holding space with people. It sounds a bit wanky, but it's actually the thing. It's holding this bit of space where letting someone talk without having your answer prepared, ready to dive in and fix anything.
Or that in Landmark, I think they talk about that already listening. Or no, already hearing or something. You were sort of, they were talking and you was going, oh no, you already had the answer or the retort.
We should get commissioned on this, the Landmark.
I am, mate. I get a cut. No, I don't. It's interesting because I couldn't necessarily rattle off the guests that I have had on the show who have done Landmark, but there are a number of them. And sometimes I can't remember whether I knew if I remembered them. I knew before the interview, or we sort of got to that point. But it's interesting. You know, I guess that and some were farmers and some were not farmers, and certainly Landmark is not. It's often mixed up with Landmark, the other mob.
Yeah.
Landmark Forum, I guess, is the official title for the one we're talking about, or one of them anyway. So it's interesting how, you know, it has appeared in the regenerative journeys of many people that I know, and then a number of them have been guests.
Yeah,
it seems to be.
It's all like, I think the blokes like me, and probably you too, mate. There's this, from what I know of you, that, you know, some of us need a light tap with a feather from the universe to remind us we're on the wrong path. Most of us ignore that. Then you get sort of a slap upside the head. For me, I needed a truck to run over me to take notice, and that was what was required.
Excuse me.
So yeah, I think, you know, we all need different levels of humbling. For me, it was needed pretty strong.
Of prodding along the track.
And I do say now I like to try and not need that. You know, I try to, and it gave me the opportunity. You asked me how it changed. I started tuning in enough to know where, hang on, I'm feeling a resistance here, or there's a little feather tapping me across the shoulder. How can I interpret that and actually shift course or adjust for it? So I became being far less rigid in my thinking has given me a lot more happiness and also a lot more success. It's been far more, I'm more open and curious about life, and it's easier. Apart from anything else, it's softer and it's easier, and you know what? Nothing's gone wrong as a result. You know, like all the shit I thought I had to control and hang on to like hell, it just didn't need it at all.
And your view of the world, how did that change? You just said you were listening more than well, you changed maybe the proportion. My father's always said you got 2 ears and 1 mouth. You should use it in that proportion, at least. What other sort of, you know, awarenesses or behaviours, or, you know, he just said that your sense of people perhaps changed.
Look, big answers to that really, but I think the big one is the journey it really put me on personally, and I don't lay claim to having achieved this by any stretch, but it was an understanding of sort of that journey into elderhood. Is it, you know, not so much about age, but just understanding myself as
a rite of passage.
Rite of passage into, you know, how do I turn up as the best version of myself as a man with, you know, a few years under my belt now, 51, and what does that look like? And am I going to be a big stupid boy in 51-year-old body, or am I going to be someone who embodies some knowledge and wisdom and some compassion? And, you know, and every day I try to lean into that, the latter, obviously, and that's you know, I feel like it's playing out in some nice ways at the moment, and it comes with its inbuilt with its challenges. You know, it's a constant challenge, and so I try to be open to continually growing. That's not the case every single moment of every day by any stretch. You ask my wife, and she'll give you a list of reasons that's not the case. But you know, as a dad now, I've got 3 daughters and quite young like yours, and it's like I've got to be an example for them. And the other part, I think I do like this idea of, you know, tuning into that indigenous wisdom around 7 generations. Is, you know, maybe I'm not living my life just for me. This is about not just for my kids. It's actually for what are we leaving, and what decisions are we making for generations that are yet to come. And that's what actually led me into this space now, into Regen Ag and into the food system. And yeah, I don't think there's any that gets me out of bed in the morning. Says, hey, you know, this is not actually about me. So why don't I get the hell over myself? You know, like, get over my insecurities and all the reasons I might not be able to do something, and make the phone call, do the thing, take the initiative.
It's interesting, isn't it, that you know, and it's something that in terms of accountability, because we're talking about life accountability here in a way. It's, you know, in the world of RCS, which I did some, you know, training with Resource Consulting Australia. You won't often do it for yourself, but you will do it for the ones you love, you know, your children. Like this morning, I was thinking, you know, I could have just had a cup of tea at 5 o'clock and gone on emails, and I wasn't going to do some exercise. And I just, you know, I thought, me having doing a little bit more exercise, some exercise this morning, was going to put me in a better frame of mind, so when my kids get up, I'm going to be a little bit sharper, a little bit more on point. And that's what, I mean, if I hadn't had that thought, I would have just had my cup of tea in the day, you know what I mean? So that's not a dissimilar kind of motivation on a very, very small scale.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your journey into regenerative agriculture. Then where, so motivation, so to speak, legacy, children, family, future.
Yep.
I mean, you could have applied that resolve to other things. You could have gone, I'm going to, I don't know, focus on technology to improve the life span of people. I don't know, but you veered towards food, health.
Yeah. Well, look, I got out of the gym business, Charlie, and it's relevant to this. I ended up quickly applying. Within 2 years, I was a business coach with a bunch of natural health practitioners as clients, and at that point, natural health industry was pretty, what's the word for it?
Embryotic,
infantile,
and
not
why,
the right word.
maybe. Why that? Evolving.
Well, because look, I'd had 17 years in the gym business, and I could want to point out, like in the gym business, there was gone from in the late 80s, the gyms were pretty small fry, to becoming a mainstream thing on every street corner. Right, there was like 1 or 2 gyms in Brisbane when we started. By the time we finished, there was one literally, within anywhere you looked within a K or two.
They were big. They spent a lot of money on those things, didn't they?
Yeah, and we were the opposite. We were like this grunty, spit and sawdust kind of little old joint with no capital behind it. So I learned a lot of very good lessons on how to be agile and survive and be smart and use our weaknesses as our strengths in business. So. And I learned a lot about selling and sales and the customer journey and how to look after people and retention was amazing. What we did, we used to have people there for years, and they were part of it. They became part of something far more important than going to pump a few weights around. They actually felt like family. People turn up there just because there was a culture, there was a sense of belonging to it, which I could talk about all day. But all those lessons I learnt, so to speak, in the trenches, and just realised that in the natural health world, very similar industry insofar as its personal service and about well-being and so on, they had nothing like that. They had almost, at that point, so little in the way of entrepreneurial insight or business thinking attached to what they were doing as a business.
Yeah, mate, said there.
Right. So, the short story of that is I ended up putting those skills to use in that space, right? And helping people in that space become better at business in order that they can then, if their business was more effective, they could help more patients and more people as customers and patients.
Just on that one, that industry, those practitioners are passionate for what they're doing, alternative, not mainstream. I guess it makes sense. They are the creators, or they are the givers of health. It's like a lot of things. A person with a passion for something is not necessarily a good manager of the business. That's going to be
100%.
That kind of is the vehicle. They don't know where the steering wheel is, or what's on the dashboard, or how much fuel to put in it. Yeah. But they know what kind of car they want.
Yeah. They are almost uniformly just great people, wonderful, love to help people, and they're there because, as you say, they're thoroughly passionate. Generally, I should say, to the exclusion of their own well-being and their own financial well-being and so on. So most of them are there for passion first, and then said, after 20 years in it, gone, geez, I'm exhausted all the time and I haven't got any money. So that was the general paradigm. Not everyone, but most. So just bringing a bit of business acumen, a bit of mindset into this, going, well, let's look at valuing yourself and start working a business model that doesn't require you to work 100 hours a week just to stay afloat, and valuing your input in terms of what you do with patients, not by the hour, but by the outcome. So just asking some different questions. Going back to the thing of being curious and being a little bit disruptive in my thinking. I just walk in and go, why you do it that way? Why this? And why not that? And why don't you charge double what you pay now, what you charge now? Those sort of questions. And within about 5 years, we developed a whole business and mindset model around the business of natural health, of which I might add, there was nothing out there at all. There was just this sort of inherited system of we do it this way. So we had, you know, a couple of thousand naturopaths and chiros and integrative doctors and acupuncturists, people like that. Fabulous people. We had this great culture around it and so on. We brought this stickability. It's the horse having a chat to us in the background.
Here it goes. It's going to come down. Anyone on the video, it's going to jump over this car here. There it is. Is it Tuckaton, is it?
I don't know. No, not really.
There it is.
Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah, free range horses. So in that industry, we managed to make a big difference. And I loved it for the fact that it allowed me to help. You know, if I had say 1,000, say I help 100 health practitioners to have a better impact in the world and be happier, better rewarded. Those sort of people, you know, you want to go to a chiro and you're patient number 170 for that week, and hope you get a good treatment, or do you want to go to someone who's fresh and healthy, full of vigour, and going to give you 100% of themselves?
Yep.
You know, I know what I wanted. Right?
Yeah.
So from that perspective, it made sense, and we aligned purpose with income, and all these things also stacked up. There's really value versus volume was a big component of it. Started just with this idea of let's deconstruct what was there and start with something new. Not necessarily easy to get that on across, but it worked, and it proved itself out. Ended up with a whole new paradigm in health. Every single practitioner, though, had thousands of patients, and they typically were the sort of practitioners that were treating people that had got spat out the back end of the mainstream health system with a chronic problem or something that they couldn't.
Just got to change the angle on it so you can see your gob there.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so they were people that, you know, had run out of other options, and so our health practitioners were looking after these people, and I don't know, I was going to go with that one, but yeah. Anyway, it was a really good point I was going to make, but it's gone.
I'll bug it up with the adjustment of the mic there. Where were we going?
Well, look, this is where I was going with it.
Yeah.
So all these practitioners, the fundamental thing. So I got to secondhand got to hear a lot of these patient stories, and what I recognised pretty quickly was 99% of it kept coming back to diet first. Right. So most chronic illness and most, you know, mystery illnesses, ongoing, persistent illnesses, cancers, and all these sort of things. You know, and I'm not going to give diagnosis or say stuff here, obviously, because it's not my place. But you know,
there's a theme.
The theme was go clean your food up. Go clean. You know, there's a whole branch of medicine called nutritional environmental medicine.
Yeah.
In mainstream medicine now.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, go clean up your nutrition and clean up the environment around you. In other words, get rid of all the toxins out of your system and out of your environment.
Internal and external.
Internal, external. You know,
right.
Get the amalgam out of your teeth and get the Wi-Fi out of your head and get the you know, the fluoride out of your water. Then you go and get the heavy metals out of your body and do a detox, and then go and eat. Don't eat food that's got friggin' pesticide all over it and so on.
Yeah.
And eat organic, eat clean. And suddenly that would be the fundamental shift for nearly everyone, from which they would then stack all these other treatment modalities on top.
So it almost didn't matter that one was a chiro or one was a naturopath or one was a this. There was all the patients that they had. Well, there was a theme, regardless of the modality.
Yeah, I mean, look, you know, people come in with a sore back, they get fixed and sent off.
They're not going to go on with a carrot, but
But if you got any kind of chronic stuff, generally came down to that as a general thing. And so that led me to get to the point again. I'd sort of come back to that idea. I get bored easy sometimes, and I was starting to feel repetitive what I was doing, and I felt I'd made a bit of contribution to that space. So I was looking for the next challenge, and I realised that the food system is inherently not served. You know, you can say to a patient, "Go and eat good quality food." I'll give you a good story. You like this one? There was one guy in the gym years ago. He was trying to train him up for a bodybuilding comp, and he wasn't. He was the loveliest bloke in the world, but he wasn't the sharpest tack. That's, you know, he wasn't. He was a little bit behind the eight ball, I'd say, right? But he, as an adult, lovely bloke, big strong guy, wasn't that bright. And we said, "Mate, what you got to eat to get in shape here is eat chicken, eat chicken, and then eat vegetables and salad." Back to basically. He said, "Okay." And then went off. He said, I'll do that, and we'll do it religiously. And we checked every day. Mate, you're doing this. Are you eating your veggies and chicken? Your salad and chicken? Yes, I am. Anyway, week after week, he kept coming in. He's getting bigger. He's getting fatter. Right?
I think I know where he's getting his salad and chicken.
Well, after about 4 weeks, he gained 10 kilos. And we said, tell me what you're actually eating. And he said, well, I do as you say. I go straight past KFC and I buy a bucket of chicken and a coleslaw, and I eat that 3 times a day. So the point is...
my question was, what's good quality food?
Yeah.
Jesus. Yeah.
But I guess the point of this is, is that the food system, as most of us listening to this know, that it's just not good quality food. Even if you're doing the best you can out there, often it's inferior. And, it's lacking in nutrients. It's got crap all over it half the time, and it's old. It hasn't, it's been on the shelf too long, whatever. Or it's been in the truck too long, etc. So we're a long way away from a good, fresh food source, even those of us who are completely switched on to trying to do the right thing. And there's a lot smarter people than me who would back that up, guys like Zach Bush and so on in the US. So that led me to this space and saying, right, let's go and have a play in the food system and see what impact can be made there, and see if we can make some fundamental shifts. Because my belief around this, I guess hammered home the point, coming back to this property I'm on now, Charlie, and having young kids and babies, how lucky I felt, genuine gratitude for the ability to give my kids fresh quality produce every day and grow food here and get it from the local markets. And we're just blessed in this space to be able to do that. And then realising how many kids don't get that, just as their daily bread, so to speak, their daily food is just garbage, because that's all there is, or that's all the parents know about, or that's all it's, more often than not, that's all that's on offer, it's all that's available. So there's a very integral part of me wanted to tap into, make a shift on this front. And
kids can't. This is the interesting thing when you say, it's all that was available. Is it a matter of? It's all available to the kids. It's what's available in the fridge, because the kids aren't going doing the shopping. And there's what's available to the parents, but it's more, in my view, it's more about it's not so much what's available, it's what they actually go looking for, it's what they go seeking. Because we know we're in Byron Bay, there's trust boxes everywhere, there's farmers markets, we are blessed with a whole range, and there's land that people can grow food on. In some areas there isn't necessarily the abundance of fresh food right next door, but there's still supermarkets and places they can get it, which is where you can absolutely source it. But it's more about they don't know what they don't know. They don't know. They haven't even had that epiphany you had.
Yeah.
About what is good. Someone goes, what is good fresh food? I'm sure that plays out. They see, eat chicken and lots of salad.
Yeah.
I reckon that story would be across this nation.
I think so. Yeah. And look, and especially low income families. I think and I know what that feels like at times. We've had ups and downs, and I know what it's like to feel stretched financially. And if you got $10 to feed your family that night, and it's a choice between a head of organic broccoli, or that won't even make a meal, or 10 packets of 2-minute noodles, you kind of know what you got to do.
Yeah.
So there's that too. So there's an inherent injustice there, which my view, and it's an ideal. It's my ideal. It's not purely an ideal. Is that every single person, every single kid should be eating fresh organic food every single meal. As I know you don't disagree with that one. So that's where I work from, I guess, is from that position. So I look at coming to the Regen, asking questions as a consumer.
Yeah.
And as a passionate
Curious
consumer. Yeah. And that's about the time I met you.
Yep.
I think. And
that was probably when was that? Be
4 years ago, maybe.
Might have been
3.5, 4 years ago.
Yep.
Yeah. Come in asking questions around the organic space, and got to meet you, and then got to meet Charlie Massey, and read his book and thought, okay, what's this Regen Ag thing? I didn't even know what the hell it was.
I guess you'd heard of organic farming and that there was organic produce in shops.
I knew about organics. I knew that well because I've been inside the health and wellness space, and organics and the vitamin industry all kind of pretty well aligned. But I'd never heard of regenerative. I heard of sustainable. couldn't even say it at the time.
It's still a mouthful.
Yeah. So but what I saw coming into it, again, excuse me, with really fresh eyes and a curiosity, was it's very, in my view, very, very similar to what I went into the fitness industry as you said, embryotic, or immature type industry. It's very early days.
Yeah.
And then seeing how we rode out the fitness industry growth, and seeing what made that work. And when the big money came in, the fitness first starting opening up, that kind of thing. So I saw the parallels there, and I saw the early stage Regen was that. And more specifically, I saw it in the natural health world, how natural health, when I moved into it, was still, it still is to a large degree, fairly small, fairly divided. There's lots of little camps. Everyone's got their own ideas about what's right. There's no kind of big unifying body. There's certainly no big money behind it. It was early days, and it's getting bigger and it's growing, and it's now actually one of the fastest, multi-trillion-dollar industry worldwide, or the wellness industry generally. And I just saw Regen Ag. I thought, wow, this is the same scenario playing out. Here's a bunch of great ideas, but they're kind of divided. They're small. There's no real cohesive business model around any of it. That was a big gap for me. I thought, wow, no one's really talking to the business of this in any sensible way. And I managed to sit down and ask yourself, and I still remember sitting at the farm here in Byron with you and Charlie Massey going, why don't you have this in it? What about that in it? Where's the business model? And they went, both of you went, no, don't have that, don't have that, don't have this, don't have that.
It was still very, not embryotic itself, but I guess there was no collective thinking or organisational sort of structure around it. It was farmers farming differently, doing their thing, selling their products, some marketing well, some not marketing well, but it was, again, probably a bit like your bunch of naturopaths going, we're just really good and passionate what we're doing,
100%.
and we're not looking at the business model, we're not looking at the value add, we're not looking at the how can we market this better and sort of really ramp this up.
Yeah, how do we organise and
Well, they weren't looking at it as a potential for an industry or a movement or a those farmers moving together in some sort of a collaborative way.
So I think all the focus is on the techniques on the land. And with animals and the land and how we grow stuff, and which is great. It's like, how do we do that
within the boundaries of their farms?
Yeah. And that's awesome. So look, I think that's great because they're genius. Just go do that. But it needed some additional players in there. I could see that, in my view anyway, that could add some innovation and business acumen. And how do we grow this as a thing beyond just a bunch of farmers with some bloody good ideas, and get them from let that passion be expressed on a wider platform.
So how's that played out now? Tell us about the role you've sort of, I guess, created for yourself, or the journey into regenerative ag that you've been on for a little while now.
Well, mate, this
is a time for self-promotion.
Probably spent the first 2 years trying to figure that out, going slowly broke figuring it out. So I must thank you for that. Actually, earlier
for not giving you all the answers. I had them. I just didn't. I said this was another opportunity for Adam to grow.
I thought I'll figure this out. 3 months. I'll take a pay hit, and I actually got out of my other business and thought 3 months. I'll give myself a launching pad to give me this. Will be sweet.
Yeah, I'll get on it.
2-3 years later, I'm still going. Anyway. But look, that's thankfully has turned around now. That has, and we found a sweet spot. But initially we got into the innovation space and started running sort of startup innovation competitions and coaching around new ideas that would further, new ideas to fill these gaps in regen. So we had all these startups in there. And they had some good ideas, and a few flew and some were good. But then I think what I recognised pretty quickly too is, ag tech's kind of a big space now. There's over 100 billion a year goes into it in the US every year now. Trying to find the next drone or the next, device that's going to change the world. We didn't want to compete against that necessarily. And I think what I loved about Regen as a movement was the answer's already there. It doesn't really need any new ideas necessarily. You know, like it wasn't really the problem. The problem was, how do we move this as a movement and get so. Business development in the space I thought was a good place to play, and that's really what we've been focusing on now, is developing businesses or business ideas that can shift the needle towards the transition, towards the broader transition.
Which was you applying your previous skills.
Absolutely.
Different industry. Yeah. I mean, and not non-related industry, you know, but you cut your teeth on the health industry.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And you applied your skills to this one.
Yeah, so it's, you know, I've got a skill set of being able to bring people together, connecting ideas and people. I'm a decent salesman when I need to be. I can spruik ideas and sort of communicate ideas well, and see the potential in the business and bring the people and fill the gaps, and, you know, create a tiger team, we call it, around the business, and help that business to fly based on. Yeah, so it's a coaching model, and it's an entrepreneurial coaching model. But it's applying entrepreneurial thinking to the space to fill gaps.
Yeah.
So that's in effect what we're doing. We've got, you know, that's taken place across about 6 or 8 different projects and platforms at the moment, which is kind of exciting. There's a lot of variety there, which suits me. But the whole thing for me personally is to play whatever part I can in seeing the transition happen towards a regenerative food system. And I don't say regen ag, I say regenerative food system. That's important to me. You know, honestly, grass-fed beef, you know, organic grains, fresh organic vegetables. That's what we all deserve and need. And that, interestingly, in the last, you know, since this whole COVID lockdown and everything that's happening in the world, all this crazy stuff that's going on, it's only furthered that. I'm sure you've seen it too, but it's the reliance and the fragility that was built into our food system prior has become exposed very quickly. So the enthusiasm in this space to get into it and to be active in it from an investor's point of view, and it's just huge. People see that we need access to good quality food. We need to have some level of control over that, rather than be dependent on Coles or someone delivering it to us, not knowing where it comes from.
Mate, I'm gonna, for the second time ever in this show, I'm gonna have to have a break and train the spuds. I laughed about it.
I feel honoured.
I laughed about it before, didn't I? Going, it happens.